The moment Sarah Henderson locked eyes with the three identical 12-year-old girls huddled together at gate B17, something in their desperate expressions made her heart stop. "Please," the one in the middle whispered, her voice barely audible above the airport announcements, "pretend you're our father." What happened next would change 6 lives forever, in ways none of them could have imagined on that rainy Tuesday morning at O'Hare International Airport. If you're touched by stories of unexpected connections and second chances, hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming true stories that remind us of the beauty in human kindness. Michael Donovan clutched his boarding pass so tightly it began to crease between his fingers. The 42-year-old history teacher had been sitting at the gate for over 3 hours, arriving ridiculously early out of sheer anxiety. This would be his first time meeting them, the 3 daughters he hadn't known existed until 4 months ago. A DNA test, a lawyer's letter, and suddenly he was father to 12-year-old triplets whose mother had recently passed away. The girls were flying in from Portland, unaccompanied minors being escorted by airline staff. Michael had spent weeks preparing his modest Chicago apartment, converting his home office into a bedroom with 3 beds. He'd painted the walls a soft lavender at the suggestion of his sister, who insisted that 12-year-old girls would appreciate the effort. But what did he know about raising children, let alone 3 grieving girls who were strangers to him? Across the terminal, Sarah Henderson was running late for her flight to New York. At 38, the pediatric surgeon was used to navigating crises with calm efficiency. But today, a last-minute emergency surgery had left her racing through O'Hare, roller bag clicking rapidly behind her. As she approached gate B17, she noticed 3 identical girls with copper-colored hair sitting alone, periodically glancing around with obvious anxiety. Lily, Emma, and Zoe Parker had been inseparable since birth. Their mother, Kathleen, had raised them alone in Portland, never speaking of their father except to say he hadn't been ready for a family. When cancer took their mother just months ago, their world collapsed. Then came the shocking news: they had a father, a man named Michael Donovan who hadn't known they existed. Now they were being sent to live with this stranger in Chicago. What if he doesn't like us? Zoe, always the worrier, whispered to her sisters. What if we don't like him? Countered Emma, the most outspoken of the 3. Lily, typically the peacemaker, remained silent, watching the crowd with growing concern. Their flight had landed 20 minutes ago, and the airline attendant who had escorted them was supposed to wait until their father arrived. But an urgent call had pulled her away, with promises to return shortly. She hadn't. That must be him, Emma suddenly hissed, nodding toward a tall man with salt and pepper hair pacing near the windows. Mom had his picture in her memory box, remember? The girls studied Michael from a distance. He looked nervous, continuously checking his watch and running his hand through his hair. He looks scared, Lily observed quietly. So are we, Zoe replied, clutching her small backpack tighter. It was then that they noticed the woman approaching, a well-dressed professional with kind eyes, walking briskly toward their gate. Something about her confident stride and gentle expression made a desperate plan form in Emma's mind. Girls, she whispered urgently, I have an idea. When Sarah Henderson heard the soft plea from the middle triplet, she stopped short. The girl's eyes were wide with a mixture of fear and hope that struck Sarah to her core. Please, the girl repeated, just for a minute. Pretend you're our father. I'm sorry. Sarah replied, confused. The girl on the left, identical except for a small birthmark near her eyebrow, leaned in. Our real dad is over there, she whispered, nodding toward the pacing man. We've never met him before. We're supposed to go live with him now that Mom died, but we're scared. We just want to watch him a little longer before he knows we're here, added the third sister. The airline lady left us alone, and we're not supposed to be by ourselves. Sarah glanced at the man by the window. The resemblance to the girls was unmistakable, the same copper hair, though his was graying at the temples, the same straight nose and determined chin. She saw his anxiety in the way he kept checking his phone, the nervous energy radiating from him. Girls, I don't think, Sarah began, but something in their expressions stopped her. She recognized the look of children facing the unknown, having seen it countless times in her young patients before surgery. "I'm Sarah," she said instead, sitting down beside them. "And I can stay with you for a few minutes, but I don't think pretending is the right approach here." "I'm Emma," said the middle triplet. "These are my sisters, Lily and Zoe. Our mom died 3 months ago." "I'm very sorry to hear that," Sarah replied gently. "We didn't know we had a father until the lawyers told us," Lily explained. "Mom never said much about him. And now we have to live with a complete stranger," Zoe added, her voice trembling slightly. Sarah felt her heart constrict. She glanced at her watch. Her flight wasn't for another hour. "Tell you what," she said, making a quick decision, "I'll stay with you until you're ready to meet him. But no pretending, okay? That wouldn't be fair to any of you." The girls exchanged glances, then nodded in unison. "What's he like?" Sarah asked, nodding toward Michael. "Have you spoken with him at all?" "We've had 3 video calls," Emma said. "He seems nice, but kind of awkward. He sent us care packages," Lily added. "Books and art supplies. He remembered I mentioned I like to draw. And he got Zoe a telescope because she likes astronomy," Emma continued. "But it's not the same as having Mom." Sarah nodded. "Of course it isn't. Nothing could replace your mom. But it sounds like he's trying. What if he changes his mind?" Zoe asked suddenly, voicing the fear that had been haunting all 3 girls. "What if he decides he doesn't want us after all?" Michael Donovan felt like he might be sick. The flight from Portland had landed 20 minutes ago. Where were they? Had there been a problem? Had they decided not to come? Would he even recognize them from the photos he'd been sent? His life had been upended 4 months ago when a lawyer contacted him about Kathleen Parker's death. Kathleen, his college girlfriend from 20 years ago. They'd dated for nearly a year before she abruptly broke things off and transferred to another university. He'd been heartbroken but eventually moved on, never knowing she'd been pregnant with his children. According to the lawyer, Kathleen had never intended to tell him about the girls. It was only in preparing her will, knowing cancer would take her life, that she'd named him as their father and guardian. The DNA test had confirmed what he already knew in his heart the moment he saw their photographs: these were his daughters. Now, as he waited at the gate, Michael was terrified. What did he know about raising children? His teaching experience with teenagers hardly qualified him to parent 3 grieving 12-year-old girls. His modest 3-bedroom apartment suddenly seemed woefully inadequate. Would they hate Chicago after growing up in Portland? Would they hate him for not being part of their lives, even though he hadn't known they existed? As Michael turned from the window, his gaze fell on a group seated nearby, a woman and 3 copper-haired girls. His heart stopped. It was them. They were here, sitting just 30 feet away, talking with a stranger. Why hadn't the airline staff brought them to him? Who was that woman? Sarah noticed Michael's sudden attention and the color draining from his face as he recognized the girls. "I think your father has spotted you," she said quietly. The triplets turned as one to see Michael staring at them, frozen in place. "He looks terrified," Emma observed. "So do we, probably," Lily replied. Sarah smiled gently. "You know what I think? I think you're all scared of the same thing, that you won't be enough for each other. But fear is just the flip side of hope sometimes." Michael finally found his courage and began walking toward them, his steps hesitant but determined. "Girls," Sarah said quickly, "remember that he's new to this too. Be patient with each other." She stood as Michael approached, extending her hand. "Hello, I'm Sarah Henderson. I was keeping your daughters company while they waited." Michael shook her hand, his eyes never leaving the 3 identical faces watching him warily. "Michael Donovan. Thank you for staying with them. The airline was supposed to." "There was an emergency," Lily explained. The lady said she'd be right back. An awkward silence fell over the group. Sarah sensed it was time for her to leave, but something held her there, concern for these four strangers on the precipice of becoming a family. "Well," Michael finally said, his voice rough with emotion, "I'm very glad to meet you all in person. I'm Michael. But I guess you know that." "I'm Lily," said the girl with the birthmark. "This is Emma and Zoe." Michael nodded, clearly trying to memorize which was which. "I have your room ready at home. It's not very big, but I thought maybe this weekend we could shop for whatever else you need to make it feel more comfortable." The girls nodded silently. "Are you hungry?" Michael asked. "There's a good pizza place near my apartment. Or we could get something else if you prefer." "Pizza sounds good," Emma ventured, the first to break the ice. Michael's relief was palpable. "Great. Pizza it is." Sarah began to step away. "I should let you all get acquainted." "Wait," Zoe said suddenly, reaching for Sarah's hand. "Thank you for staying with us." "It was my pleasure," Sarah replied with a warm smile. "Do you live in Chicago?" Lily asked. "I do. I'm just traveling to New York for a medical conference." "You're a doctor?" Emma asked. Sarah nodded. "A pediatric surgeon. I work with children." The triplets exchanged meaningful glances, communicating in that silent way that only identical siblings can. "Maybe," Emma said slowly, looking at Michael, "maybe Dr. Sarah could join us for pizza sometime? When she gets back from New York?" Michael looked startled, then thoughtful. "That's very kind of you to suggest, Emma. But Dr. Henderson probably has a busy schedule." Sarah found herself surprisingly reluctant to refuse. There was something about this newly forming family that touched her deeply. "Actually, I'd be happy to join you sometime, if you're all comfortable with that. Here's my card." As she handed her business card to Michael, their fingers brushed briefly. Something passed between them, an understanding, perhaps, of the challenging road ahead for him and these three girls. "Safe travels, Dr. Henderson," Michael said. "Call me Sarah, please. And good luck to all of you." As Sarah walked away toward her own gate, she glanced back once to see Michael awkwardly attempting to help the girls with their luggage, all four of them moving with the careful politeness of strangers. Yet there was something there, a tentative beginning, a possibility. The first weeks were harder than any of them had anticipated. The girls, accustomed to their mother's ways and their Portland home, found Chicago disorienting and Michael's apartment confining. Michael, used to his solitary teacher's life, struggled to adjust to the constant presence of three preteen girls with their emotions, needs, and grievances. Zoe cried every night for her mother. Lily withdrew into silent drawing, filling sketchbooks with Portland landscapes and portraits of Kathleen. Emma, the most confrontational, tested every boundary Michael attempted to set, challenging his authority at every turn. "You're not our real dad," she shouted during their first major argument, when Michael insisted on a reasonable bedtime on school nights. "You're just some guy who got stuck with us." The words cut deeper than Michael could have imagined. That night, after the girls had finally gone to bed, he sat alone in his kitchen wondering if he was making a terrible mistake. Perhaps the girls would be better off with Kathleen's sister in Florida, who had initially declined guardianship due to her own health issues. In a moment of desperation, Michael found himself looking at the business card Sarah had given him. It had been 2 weeks since their airport meeting, and he'd thought of her often, her calm presence, the easy way she'd spoken with the girls. Before he could talk himself out of it, he sent a text message. "Sarah, it's Michael Donovan from the airport. I hope your conference went well. The girls mentioned pizza, if you're still willing. We could use a friendly face right now." To his surprise, she responded almost immediately, "I'd love to. Tomorrow at 6. The pizza dinner with Sarah became a turning point. She arrived with small gifts for each girl, a sketchbook of heavyweight paper for Lily, a book about women astronomers for Zoe, and a journal with a lock for Emma. Somehow, her presence eased the tension that had been building in the apartment. The girls opened up to her in ways they hadn't with Michael, sharing stories about their mother and their life in Portland. "Mom used to make us hot chocolate with cinnamon when we were sad," Zoe confided as they finished their pizza. "That sounds lovely," Sarah replied. "Perhaps you could show Michael how she made it sometime." "Dad doesn't have cinnamon," Emma said, then froze, realizing she'd called Michael Dad for the first time. Michael pretended not to notice, though his heart leaped. "I can get some tomorrow," he said casually. "And anything else you think we need." After that evening, Sarah became a regular presence in their lives. She joined them for dinner once a week, helped the girls navigate their new school, and offered Michael quiet support and advice when the challenges of sudden parenthood overwhelmed him. "How did you know what to say to them?" he asked her one evening as they washed dishes together after the girls had gone to bed. "They respond to you so differently." Sarah smiled. "I work with children every day. But honestly, Michael, you're doing better than you think. They're starting to trust you." "Emma called me Dad again today," he admitted. "Twice. See? Progress." As autumn turned to winter, the apartment slowly transformed. The girls' room, once a sterile space with 3 identical beds, now reflected their individual personalities. Lily's area was filled with art supplies and drawings pinned to the walls. Zoe had star charts and a small bookshelf of astronomy texts. Emma had covered her space with posters of female athletes and musicians. Michael found himself learning the language of fatherhood one difficult phrase at a time. He learned to braid hair after watching YouTube tutorials late at night. He figured out how to navigate the complicated social dynamics of middle school girls. He discovered that Lily needed quiet encouragement, Zoe thrived with structure and reassurance, and Emma required honest conversations and respect for her independence. There were still difficult days. The girls' first Christmas without their mother was particularly painful. Michael had invited his sister's family and Sarah to join them, hoping to create new traditions while honoring Kathleen's memory. But Christmas Eve found all 3 girls in tears, huddled together on Lily's bed looking at photos of their mother on holidays past. Michael stood in the doorway, uncertain how to comfort them. It was Sarah who gently suggested they light a candle for Kathleen and take turns sharing their favorite Christmas memories of her. "She would want you to be happy," Sarah told them as they sat in a circle in the living room, a single candle flickering in the center. "Finding joy doesn't mean forgetting her. She always made us wear matching pajamas on Christmas Eve," Emma remembered with a watery smile. "And she sang Silent Night really badly," Zoe added, giggling through her tears. "She let us open one present each on Christmas Eve," Lily said softly. "Always the smallest one under the tree." Michael listened, absorbing these precious details about the woman who had raised his daughters, feeling both gratitude and regret that he hadn't known her as a mother. Later that night, after the girls had finally fallen asleep, Michael and Sarah sat quietly by the Christmas tree. "Thank you," he said simply. "I wouldn't have known what to do tonight." Sarah squeezed his hand. "You would have figured it out. You're becoming a wonderful father, Michael." "I couldn't have done it without you," he admitted. "The girls adore you." "And I adore them," she replied. "They're remarkable young women." Something shifted between them in that moment, an acknowledgement of feelings that had been growing over the past months. Michael found himself drawing closer to her, and when their lips met in a gentle kiss, it felt like coming home. Spring brought new challenges and triumphs. The girls joined school activities, Lily in art club, Zoe in science olympiad, and Emma in basketball. Michael adjusted his teaching schedule to attend their events, proudly watching from the sidelines.